Hello, welcome everybody to this Connecting Nature Enterprise Platform webinar on co-production. And thank you very much for joining us today. This webinar is jointly organized by two of our communities, the Nature-Based Organization Community, led by me, Valeria Stacchini, and the community engagement led by Paola, who will coordinate and lead the discussion. While we give a chance to others to join, please note that we will be recording the webinar today so that we can share it with others throughout our platform. And well, hoping this is fine with you all. Connecting Nature Enterprise Platform was created to provide nature-based solution practitioners with a space to exchange about the barriers, challenges, share good practices, and above all, networking, so as to join force and boost nature-based solution. Today's webinar, we will explore how co-production can offer organization a positive new way of engaging with citizens and partners that create transformational change in local places. Paola will describe how co-production has been a central practice in the Connecting Nature project. We will then hear about the experience of our frontrunner cities, Poznan, and I'm sorry, but Naomi from Connected the Dot is ill, so she has to pull out from today's event. So instead, I will briefly tell you about our experience here in the metropolitan city of Bologna about co-production throughout Connecting Nature project, as well as in the Life the Gap project. Then we will open the floor to the discussion, and in the first part we will also listen to Gillian about the experience in Glasgow. Let me say a few words to introduce you, Paola, and her Empath enterprise before leaving her the floor. Empath is a not-for-profit social enterprise which is born within the Connecting Nature project. Empath use a range of people-centered co-production and engagement technique to support sustainable community development and environmental protection. Paola is one of the Empath founders. Paola has worked since the beginning in the Connecting Nature project, working in particular on governance and co-production practice as part of the University of East London team. And she, better than me, can dive you into the core of today's topic. Paola, to you.
Thank you very much, Valeria. I'm going to share my screen, I hope. Hopefully you can see that. So thank you everybody, and welcome. We're delighted to have you here for this co-hosted webinar. Just get this moving somehow. So why we're doing this? Connecting Nature, really, our 5-year program has had at its heart the aim of embedding nature-based solutions in our 11 cities. So for some, that has been quite a journey, from initially starting with localized nature-based solutions, which we find now in many cities, quite often pilots of innovation. But the challenge really to be able to make the most of nature-based solutions and to really benefit from all of the different benefits that we can get, you really need to be looking at embedding nature-based solutions. So our cities have engaged with that very proactively. We've worked as a consortium of now 36 partners together to look at that citywide embedding. So that's operating at multiple connected scales to really design in those multifunctional benefits, and sharing experiential learning, being open to innovation, and really exploring how collaborative governance really needs to be the new norm, and co-production really sits within that. So a lot of the work that I'm going to present to you is work that's been left by our partner Drift, Dutch Research Institute for Transitions, on co-production. And co-production, it really is a form of collaborative governance, and its aim is to give stakeholders an equal seat at the table when you're creating solutions to urban challenges. And it is designed to be adaptive and reflexive, and it's designed to create collaborative outputs so that there are always actions involved. And it mobilizes and empowers actors and bursts open silos. And here, some of you are probably familiar with the sort of ladder of engagement, and this really is a very complementary to that. So really, co-production is about doing with rather than doing to or doing for. And we need this because there are just so many complex challenges and so many questions that need to be answered, and people really need to collaborate, work together. We need multiple types of knowledge to address the challenges and make the most of the solutions that are available. And really the opportunities through this collaborative governance process are that we can create public value and new solutions to shared problems. And Drift really have led our work in analysing what would be needed to deliver effective co-production. And they've come up with these 6 design principles, 3 of which relate to processes, so that processes should be inclusive, open and legitimate. And then 3 related to outcomes that should be actionable, empowering and aligning. They've also identified 4 steps, so setting your goals, structuring your process, designing activities and reflecting. So it's very much an iterative process. This is something that you do right through the journey from planning to implementation and stewardship of your nature-based solutions. And over the 5 years within Connecting Nature, really our cities and the work that our cities have done, collaborating with the partners, has really been at the heart of this, and where so much of our learning has happened. So we've done academic research and publications, but we also produced a lot of practical guides and tools, some of which you'll hear about today, and created a spin-out enterprise that Valeria mentioned at the start called Empath, which I've been involved in along with partners in Trinity College Dublin. So on the website, you'll find a range of tools, and the co-production guidebook has a lot of resources, a lot of activities that you can try out. And in terms of Empath, as I said, it's a social enterprise that's a spin out from Connecting Nature, and it's really been developed to trial new co-production approaches. It's an arts-based co-creative engagement process, and we use a number of different methods to establish or re-establish people's connections with nature, either individually and or collectively. And it really invites creative encounters with reflections about the past and the present as a way to access how to create the futures that we want. So it's really based around narratives and storytelling. So we've developed this and combined it in a sort of a multiple day program ideally, but we've delivered it in shorter chunks as well, to just create a number of different ways of thinking and about a place. And we've tried the Sarajevo pathway and co-created it really with these 3 cities, Sarajevo, Nicosia and A Coruña. So there are a number of resources, as we've mentioned, and you'll be able to access those. There are videos to find out more about the city examples, and we can add those to the chat as we go along. And really now I'd like to hand over to Natalia from Poznan, because she'll be able to give you a much better flavour of what the cities have done within Connecting Nature. So thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you for, I hope I will be able to present everything that is necessary. Just let me share my my presentation. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalia Madajczyk, and I represent the Connecting Nature project team from the city of Poznań, Poland. And today I would like to present you 2 experiences and that shows challenges and achievements of the co-production methods that we adopted in our city, in our team actually. I don't know why it doesn't move. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, so the 2 examples I would like to speak about, the first are the natural playgrounds in Poznań kindergartens, where co-production helps us to involve local stakeholders in creation of so-called local changes. And the second one is Poznań Urbakt local group, where co-production is helping us to break internal administrative silos through and create the local action plan for blue and green infrastructures. I will start now with the natural playgrounds, which were our flagship small-scale nature-based solutions implemented in the frame of the Connecting Nature project. Some of you may already be familiar with it, but for those who are not, I will just remind what actually the natural playgrounds are. So the natural playground is a kind of innovative way of designing and implementing the playgrounds around kindergartens. As you know, many of the kindergarten playgrounds are mostly focused on classical plastic devices for playing and some kind of very safe places where children can play. And they are very traditional. However, we found that the idea of natural playgrounds, which provide children with direct access to nature, which is very important, especially for the children who live in the city, and they help to develop their creativity, but also to develop their health, mental and physical, through contact with nature, through contact with devices and playing devices that are made of natural products, and that actually have no, very often they don't have like a direct goal, and children have to create their own way of using them. So this was actually about the designing of the playgrounds and their benefits for kids, but also designing such natural playgrounds in the city, especially in densely built urban areas. It also provided many benefits for the local environment, because the sealing, for example, asphalt, and providing more greenery, more biodiversity, it enhances nature in these parts of the city, which really are very poor in it. So it brings ecological difference, but it also brings economical difference, because it somehow strengthens the need for specialists who are dealing with implementation of such devices. So this is actually a kind of a new niche for economic development. Here you can see some of the pictures that show actually how the playgrounds change in the natural oriented way. The first picture shows the kindergarten, which was one of our first volunteers to participate in this scheme that I will be talking later about. As you can see, it's a huge space, which is very badly developed. With traditional devices for fun. Actually, here you can see none, but you can believe me that there are some very old playing equipment. And actually, but it also shows the potential of this place for the surrounding areas, because it's a huge area which really needs biodiversity, but it has also, for example, big trees, which is a rare thing in the city center. The director of the kindergarten decided to join our scheme, our proposal to develop this kindergarten playground into the more nature-oriented playground. And here you can see one of the biggest benefits, especially for environment, is the sealing of the asphalt, which really improves the rainwater absorption to the ground. Here you can see the old part of the kindergarten playground, and here is the new one, where you can see that everything was sealed. The kids can play using natural devices. Some of them still are there. The classical slide, which was there before, but you can also see that, for example, the sand pit was changed into a kind of a pool, where the water is, of course, replaced with sand, but it still reminds of a beach and some kind of a pier. The devices that were implemented in the kindergarten are all linked with nature. Here you have the weather machine, or a willow hat, which actually here has no leaves, but it was the picture made several years ago, and now it really has a lot of them. And here you can see also you can feel the character of the natural playgrounds, because you can see that they are changed in a way, for example, like the forest or wooden huts. So it really provides children with the opportunity to really enjoy the time in nature, and here to play with nature, with water, with mud, and experience some things that they really cannot experience, especially when they live in the city and spend a lot of time in front of the television. But coming back to the co-production process, which really was in the heart of the designing of the natural playgrounds, I'd like to tell you a bit about the strengths of this process that we found while designing the natural playgrounds. First, using the co-production really led us to be more open and inclusive for the needs of the stakeholders involved, especially kids. It also is a challenge for us, but also a strength to be more flexible, which is not very popular among the city clerks, but actually it is possible as it comes out. It also enabled us to be transparent, because very often before the innovations or the investments in kindergarten were made, it was only the decision of the director of the kindergarten, who could not afford, for example, for the designer, and just took the decision on how the playground will look like on himself. So it was not transparent. It didn't share goals, visions, and dreams of the direct beneficiaries. And of course, it also led especially our team to be a bit experimental and reflective, because we were learning on the basis of our experiences. Of course, the process involved many stakeholders. Especially we needed to involve our colleagues from another department of the City Hall. The external institutions sometimes, but here mainly the kindergarten, the specialists and users, and we were also thinking about involving private companies to provide us with some extra money for investments. However, this is still a challenge for our team. The main technical thing for us was to involve the co-productive designer. And it was actually our, I don't know, blessing that we had, because we found a really, really good designer, Anna Komorowska, who was very much into the topic of the natural playgrounds, but also she knew how to deal with people, how to engage people, from the teachers that you can see on these pictures, who are having workshop about the benefits of natural playgrounds and the way how they can be used for children. But also how to work with children, because she was actually responsible for taking the ideas, the imagination of children who designed somehow the roles of the playground into the professional design that she was, of course, paid for, and she provided it for further investment, for obtaining all the permissions and so on and so on. Sometimes it was not very easy because kids, for example, wanted to have a jungle, and in Poland it's not possible to have a jungle in the city. But of course, she was designing things that reminded kids of jungle, and really it was a lot of fun, a lot of imagination. Here you can also see one of the elements like collaboration with different stakeholders. You can see, for example, a policewoman, especially for kindergartens that are situated in the city areas which are not very safe, let's say. It was also some kind of apprehension for the parents that the kindergartens might attract some people who can destroy it, but also for the director and teachers, of course. So the police was also involved in the process to secure somehow more monitoring, more safety for the place. The key role players of this process, of course, they were kindergartens, and I must say that actually. It really took a lot of courage, especially at the beginning, from the directors, from the managers of the kindergartens, where they were open for these innovative ways of designing and investing money that they got from the city hall in a way that was not very popular, because there were really many questions about safety. However, we secured we found we have already links with a company that gives safety certificates to such places, and we were well prepared for the questions from the teachers who were a bit apprehensive at the beginning, but from one year to another, it really got more and more popular. Another role was the role of our office, which was coordinating firstly a smaller project that promoted the natural playground, but also, of course, connecting nature. We were responsible for securing money for this designing and participation process, finding the architect, this designer and builders of the natural playgrounds. Department of Education. It's a department that supervises Poznań kindergartens and also distributes the budget for the education sector. And it provided the money for investment in kindergartens in the frame of the program they managed for 5 years. Actually, the money were to be used by 10 kindergartens a year, and each of the kindergarten could use it the way they wanted. So we approached the kindergartens to promote the natural-oriented way of designing, and those who enlisted to our scheme, they participated with our proposals of designing. And of course, the fourth key role are specialists, enthusiasts, innovators, who are also involved in this innovative process. We also, I have to change see my presentation. We also were introduced and experienced a kind of a scheme with linking two budgets of our city, which was actually not very popular before. So it's a kind of a way of also breaking a kind of a silo, because Department of Education is dealing with their own money. Our department is also dealing with the money that we have in the budget, sometimes from external projects. And linking those two sources of money, it also provides the opportunity to use the investment from the city budget in a more innovative than usual way. This was actually something that we tried, and we can see that it can be also upscaled with different nature-based solutions. The result was 25 kindergartens that we managed to change in a way to the natural playgrounds. We also managed to get some kindergartens that were granted money from the Poznań Civic budget program. So it is still more than just the money from the city, from Department of Education. Okay. It doesn't move. Yeah. The second example is of the co-production is less oriented on the local change, I mean on the placemaking change, but it's more oriented on this breaking the silos problem that we envisage in Poznań when it comes to green and blue infrastructure. So the area that is also linked with nature-based solutions. So when Paula talked about this embedding of nature-based solutions in the city, I think that the example that I will be showing you now is one of the co-production ways of just like making the nature-based solutions stronger in our city and putting it into people's mind, especially into people who work in the city hall, because this is something that we know that is necessary for the nature-based solutions to be like used on a daily basis in the city hall work. The Poznań Urban Local Group is actually the group that is created in the frame of Health and Green Space project that is a sister project to the Connecting Nature. We started implementing this project 2 years ago, and it actually also finishes at the same time almost as the Connecting Nature. It was a great opportunity for us to link the activities of both projects, especially that one of the main aim of this Urbact project was to create so-called green and blue infrastructure integrated action plan for Poznań. And here where the co-production comes in. In the frame of this Poznań Urbact Local Group, we made the diagnosis that actually like convinced us and confirmed what we already knew from the Connecting Nature project, is that Poznań has a great advantage, the wedge and ring greenery system, but at the same it's a challenge when it comes to administration of the city of Poznań and the scope of the integrated action plan for us. In terms of planning and management of green areas, the city struggles with dispersion of the tasks between the large number of different units and institutions, and therefore insufficient cooperation and access to information. And these are actually the silos. We have 4 deputy mayors in Poznań, and it turns out that each of them has supervises some of the departments, for example, or municipal units that deal with green and blue infrastructure. So it's not easy to cooperate with such a huge organization. And the result of the diagnosis was this sentence that in order to make the process efficient, it is necessary to facilitate this cooperation. To improve efficiency, it's crucial to encourage the participation of residents, identify potential funding, and develop green standards for public institutions. So all that the co-production process embraces. The first meeting of the local group was actually linked with the eye-opener workshop that we managed in the frame of the Connecting Nature project. It was just several weeks before the pandemic burned out, so you can still see people like sitting together in the room. We wanted to lead all the meetings, of course, face to face, but actually this was the only one that we managed before the pandemic. But symbolically, it was the first meeting of regular workers of different units and city departments that met like on a regular basis to learn what nature-based solutions are and actually to discuss whether they can identify what nature-based solutions they implement in the frame of their own daily activities. Here you can see, now there's also one workshop that we managed to make. We wanted to involve them mainly to open their minds, let's say, involving them in the workshops on designing of nature-based natural playgrounds. And you can see that here actually the city clerks were turned into children because they were learning from our designer how to design the natural playground. It was really a very mind-opening event because it actually had a lot of fun, of course, but also some kind of looking from the other angle at the way of designing space, especially public space. And then the hard work came because our team was also obliged to create this green integrated action plan for Poznań. At the beginning, it sounds very attractive and very, you know, a lot of fun, but then it turned out that it was really, really hard work. First, we mapped and got involved different stakeholders. You can see that there are many of them. Like from the departments of the City Hall, we identified 12. However, they were not all of them. Then we had our colleagues from the university, from different universities, also municipal institutions and units which are dealing with green and blue infrastructure, and also, which was very important for us, is to join to our group the representatives of NGOs, because I have to be frank, the relations between the City Hall and the NGOs in the area of greenery, of blue infrastructure, they are not very easy. So having those people on board of this group was very, very important, because we just somehow broke this apprehension from their side and from our side. The action planning journey, I will not get very much into details, but you can see here it was divided in 4 phases. The first phase was like preparing for this ULG, mapping the stakeholders. Then we had the first meetings, the consolidation of the ULG. And of course, here comes the problem of the pandemic, because we were quite afraid that it won't be possible to work, for example, in a workshop manner, in a workshop way with such a huge group. But then we decided to have an external trainer, and it was a very good idea, because she helped us to manage the process online. So for us, it was also a kind of a lessons learned that it is possible, and it went maybe somehow more structured than at the usual face-to-face meeting, because everyone was really focused on the job. The third phase was just preparing the local plan. So elaborating problems, goals, then workshops on 3 groups that were selected, 3 thematic groups that were selected during the work, and also wrapping up seminar presenting the ULG with what we've already done. And now we are in the phase 4. So last year we started with the implementation of so-called Nature-Based Solutions Academy, and also finding different departments that are responsible for different activities that were defined in the project, in the plan. Shortly, I will just show you the structure of the plan. First, there were like 4 strategic objectives elaborated by the group. Each of the strategic objectives had 3 operational objectives. Then we had, you can see how every the strategic objective was how to say, constructed in 3 operational objectives. And here I chose the 3rd strategic objective, dealing with raising awareness of citizens and investors in terms of the role that greenery and water play in improving life quality. Because one of them here is the Nature-Based Academy and Catalog, which is actually our team task. And it is mainly aiming at improving the knowledge and expertise of our colleagues from the City Hall, but also for the external stakeholders. Here you can see that that also the Nature-Based Academy and Nature-Based Catalog is also somehow defined in different areas. And also I can tell you that we started, thank God the pandemic is almost, let's say in Poland we say it's over. Of course it's not over, but we can meet again face-to-face. And I think a month ago we had one of our first meetings in the frame of the Nature-Based Academy, which was linked with evaluation of eco-services. And many of the participants of our local group got together after 2 years of seeing each other on the computers. It was really, it was like the summit, Connecting Nature Summit in Gang when we met ourselves in person. It was really very, very good meeting and a lot of knowledge that we shared. And finally, here you have some kind of quotations. I'm sorry they are in Polish, but it was really not easy to translate all of them. But I can only tell you that these are the quotations from our colleagues from this group, and I think many of them stresses how important it is for the regular workers of the City Hall to meet with each other, to exchange knowledge, to exchange expertise, to share ideas, because very often our different departments, they do the same stuff or like stuff that can be joined together and be more and more effective than like working on alone. And also there's one which is much more rational. There is a lot to be done, and we know this, and we know that we will continue. As you can see here again from this slide, we are just now developing the final version of the plan for Poznań, and we are going on with this nature-based academy, and we are now mainly focusing on dissemination and promotion of the integrated action plan, especially to our decision makers, because they have to know that so much work was done by the people who work here, and it really should be taken from the bottom to up. Thank you very much.
That was great. Thank you very much, Natalia.
Thank you.
And it's really good to know that the co-production within Connecting Nature, that you as cities are finding it useful and using it in other projects as well. That's really great. And I think, Valeria, you just briefly wanted to share an example of another project where you've been doing this as well, didn't you?
Yeah, here I am, and I will try to be really, really short. I just would like to share some points that were already mentioned by Natalia. Also here in Bologna, we had a similar experience of co-production. I will take the VEGAP Life project just as an example. In this case, we not really worked with citizens, but with different type of actors. As the project, the main goal of the project was to study in also a scientific way which are the impact of the vegetation on air quality and temperature. And this was important because planners, decision makers, when make choices and plan our city, sometimes do not have the information and the tool to make informed decision. So the project was really, really a deep dive in the scientific world, and it was really helpful to adopt a co-production project to make this type of information usable also by our policymaker and also the technician working in our department, but also accessible to the citizens throughout an information platform. The co-production worked let me say 3 levels. The first one, and it is the basic, was the co-production inside the partnership of the project. All the different organizations involved as actors in the development of the platform. And we had here scientific partner like the Italian National Agency for Environment and Energy. We have the University from Madrid. We have the National Agency for Agriculture and Forestry here in Italy. And all of these organizations work together with 3 pilot cities, Bologna, Madrid, and Milano, which brought to the project all the practical contribution needed. And the partnership was completed also from some businesses that worked to realize the platform itself. So the co-production started at an internal level, let me say, of the project, but it was also open to the external, because every city worked within their local stakeholders, trying to create a community of interest. And we also exchanged with experts and other projects with networking activities. This is how Life VEGAP project work, and you can see from here that the co-design and co-production was made throughout whole the project life, from the beginning till the end. And this was really important because every step was enriched by this type of project. And I will say that all the actors bring to the project different perspective. They stimulate the creativity, they push for best outcome, and maybe something that was not in the mind of the project in the beginning. And I will say that this kind of cooperation also push us as cities for develop better plans, and also to integrate different project, different topics. This was not easy, as Natalia said, because there are a lot of silos, and sometimes it is not common to work with other departments, and also with other authorities, because, you know, we are not a cities, but we are working for the municipalities, and sometimes competence are not so distinct, and yeah, it is not easy. However, we saw from our experience that this kind of project need time, of course, but will bring a positive outcome. And I would also say that this was good also for other partners, in particular the scientific one, that maybe were not so used with this type of exchange. Here, just this slide is just to explain you how was complex the topic we try to develop within the project. So in some way, it was not easy to communicate even the work we were doing, and in particular for citizens and the association we involved in this process. Here you can see the official, let me say, moment of co-production, because every cities organize 3 workshops, but it was not just this, as I said, because the exchange and the co-production was also developed day by day with constant exchange with the other organization. We too suffered because of the COVID pandemic, and we had to stop and rethink how to continue with this exchange and co-production. And so, as Natalia said, we need to think in another way how to go online. And there are ways to go online, and they work. However, my feeling is that when you meet people, there is a different impact, because also the personal exchange is stronger, and I will see that people make the difference, and if they are well engaged, also the result will get better. So I would definitively say that if we could meet, it is better. And just to have some image how these workshop were carried out. Someone were in presence, others were online. And this is the last slide, just to tell you about the work we managed to do, trying to simplify all that scientific data and make them available, and also to be communicated to citizens. Who participated in this process? I said we invited local authorities, municipalities, regions. We had also other scientific organization. For example, in Bologna, it was really great to have a local foundation, Villa Gigi, that are doing a great work. And we had association from citizens, and we invited also journalists and communicators, because again, we think that we need to make a better awareness of that kind of problem. Well, I think I should stop here. If you are interested in know more also on the result of Big Up and which type of information are available throughout the platform, you can join the project, the website, and there you will also see a short video narrating better than me all the work done. Thank you.
That's great, Valeria. Thank you. And I think, you know, really across the examples from Natalia and Valeria, we've got a good sense of the different ways that co-production can really help people to move forward. And I think it's that, you know, the points around, you know, the things you can't plan for. It's those sparks of imagination and innovation when people get together, preferably in person, that I think, you know, really are the benefits of co-production. I don't know if there have been any comments or questions in the chat. We don't actually have very long. We're going to have to close in about 10 minutes. But Gillian, I see you here, and I know that in Glasgow, one of the interesting things you did was to use one of the tools from Connecting Nature, the business model canvas, in quite an interesting community. And I'd be interested to hear how that worked out, and were there any challenges in engaging people around that kind of process?
Okay, so in case people don't know, the business model canvas was designed, or the nature-based solution version was designed by our colleagues in Trinity College Dublin. Siobhan was on the call earlier at the start, and it took that standard business model canvas that businesses around the world use, and it took a nature-based lens on it. And I think what Siobhan thought she was creating was a tool that we as council employees could use to have a look at different projects. And we had tested it on our open space strategy, and we realized when we worked with colleagues it was actually a really great conversational tool. So we were talking to colleagues who were developing community gardens, one in a walled garden in a community called Bellahouston, but the one that was really interesting was in a community called Drumchapel, which is one of our post-war housing estates. It's in the northwest corner of the city, fairly deprived, got all the stats that you want to see about poor health, poor educational engagement, poor work opportunities, etc. But just prior to the pandemic, we set up a community co-production consultation, and we used the business model canvas as the framing for that. So we printed out this canvas, and we did partly fill in some of the points, but it allowed us to have a conversation and say, what are the key activities that you want to do in a community garden? So instead of us just assuming that it was going to be allotments, or that they wanted to just do growing spaces or small spaces, they could tell us that they wanted to do community engagement activities, they wanted places to sit, they wanted places where people could see what they were doing, they could be seen and be heard. The canvas then asks you to think about the resources that you have, what's the value of what you're proposing to do, who are the partners you're working with, who benefits from what you're doing, how you're going to capture that value that everybody is getting from it, how you can look at reducing the costs, and how you're going to make this sweat the assets, for want of a better description. But by using it as a canvas and talking about a thing that the community wanted to do, we were able to get those conversations going. So there was conversations going about, well, if we had a shed, we might be able to rent that out to somebody else. So that would give us some money. Or if we have some shelter, people might want to use that for events. And we ended up, and it took them 2 years, so just after the pandemic eased, Grow Chapel, as it was named, community garden, opened, and we launched the Urban by Nature hub at that 2 weeks ago. And it was great because we had a sheltered space where we could stand, we could see the allotments that had been created, but we could also see the small growing spaces that had been created, the various charities that were involved. One of them turned up with tea and coffee for us, so they could experiment and see whether that worked, because one of the value propositions they were having was if you hosted a community day, you could sell tea, coffee, cakes, or whatever, and it would earn money. But the canvas was a really good way of framing the different things. So instead of just saying, what do you want to do? It was saying, well, who gets value out of this? And we could have a conversation about the health board getting value out of it, because it could reduce prescriptions for antidepressants, for instance, or the local cookery club could get value because it could get fresh veg. So it was that kind of conversation it allowed us to frame. So it was a really, really useful tool. And it's surprisingly, it is now being touted as a community engagement tool it wasn't designed for that, but it's an absolutely brilliant one to use. And our food growing strategy people plan to roll it out and use it with every community they go into, so that they have that collaborative conversation about who gets value out of this, how can you sweat the asset, what are the opportunities to make this self-sustaining.
It's brilliant, and it's brilliant that all of these tools that are being created can just be adapted. So I think that's, you know, one of the lessons we're learning is that, you know, there are a range of tools that you can access, not just Connecting Nature, other projects are creating them to have a play, adapt, try them out.
Yeah, we certainly discovered, so when we did it, we just printed it out as a big sheet, and then we used Post-its to put the answers on, but you could equally get chalk and draw out the canvas on a playground, for instance, and do it with the kids. So the way the canvas is designed, Natalia, for instance, could take a translated version into a primary school and draw it out on the playground and get the children to tell you who gets value out of this, what do we want to do with it. So it has that adaptability about it, because it's just a grid and you can fill it in however you want to fill it in. And you could draw pictures on it instead of writing words, for instance, if you were using it with very young children.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know whether anyone else has any experience of tools or resources that could be useful. Feel free to put them into the chat as links or whatever. I think one of the things that really has become clear is that if you want to adopt these kinds of processes, you have to allow time, and you have to allow the, you know, the space, whether that be the physical space or the, you know, mental space, people's capacities to be able to take part in these things in a way that's comfortable to them. And, you know, that's a really important thing if you're designing these kinds of processes. I don't know if, you know, Natalia or Julian or Valeria, you've had experience of that, or any challenges that you've had to address.
I kind of think some of it is about people's confidence, because I think sometimes people have a fear that they're going to say the wrong thing. And sometimes being able to do like what Natalia did with the children and just getting them to draw stuff. They don't have to have the words to articulate it, but they can definitely draw what they experienced. The drawings you had, Natalia, were amazing.
Yeah, I really admire the designer who was supposed to interpret them in a professional way. Do you know, I think that the challenges, well, I think that especially for this people working in the city hall, there are, of course, the boxes that we are put in within our normal daily work, and also the legal boundaries that we have. Because very often we are somehow taught from the very beginning of our work that no, this cannot be done because there is a legal rule that we have to follow. And sometimes it appears that it's not like the legal rule that really is like, I don't know, set by God, but you really can be more flexible. And when you try to cooperate and to bring in some more, let's say, soft solutions, it's not really, it may be somehow, you might think that it's too much work, but then it comes out that it's more effective because, for example, the process of this stewardship and what happens after the investment is made, for example, it's easier than with something that is really set only by the rules and defined by someone sitting by his or her desk. Yeah, so this was something that I think is the biggest challenge for the people working in municipalities. But then we still have more and more young people and more creative people, and it's like a fresh blood, let's say, for the structures, and actually I think that's the future of how we work.
Oh, lovely! We've got another tool there from Gillian. Thank you. We're literally in the last minute. We should have set longer. But it's a fascinating topic, and you know, it's just really very inspiring that you cities are actually going on this journey And remember that there is a whole enterprise platform with many people on there who can help you on your journey and provide some of that input and interpretation and bringing people together. So I think it's definitely a collaborative process. And yes, onwards and upwards. And I think we have to close now. I'd just like to thank everybody. Thank you to the people who've taken part today. It's been really great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Paula.
And have a nice afternoon. Bye.
Have a nice afternoon, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.